going around the tax net. The way we can tell is because there are standard measurements that we use to compare the size of the economy with how much tax is coming through. This is a common measure that is used all over the world. So we want to make sure that we are within line with those measurements that will give us the confidence that everyone is contributing. But also, I want to state that the tax regime that we are looking forward in the next few years is one that attracts investments in the country. Please understand me very well. A lot of people complain that the taxes, especially for those of us in formal employment, they're too high. Some pay taxes as high as 37.5%, and you complain it's too high. The issue is this: if we can get as many as our people to pay taxes, some from the informal sector, then it will become possible to reduce the burden of those who are in formal sector employment. Part of the burden, of course, is to catch up with the dodgers of tax, but part of the effort is really about encouraging more investments in the country. If there's more investment in the country, more mines open up, more manufacturing, more factories open up, more farms open up, more transport and logistics, more services open up. If that happens, then obviously the number of people in formal employment is going to increase. Therefore, it makes sense at that point to reduce taxes for everybody because the burden is being shared across a wider spectrum of people. So, as we talk about taxes in the next few years, we need to do something about adjusting the taxes and how they are administered so that we attract more investment in the country. When we do that, the level of taxes that the investments that the company themselves will pay, not one taxpayer, but all of them, because there'll be more of them, will be able to collect more taxes. Similarly, even at pay-as-you-earn level, because there will be so many people in employment, in mines, factories, farms, hotels, and so forth, you find that the burden will be lower because there will be more contributors to the tax net. And one of the areas that we are focusing on this is that of mining. I want to remind all of us, 10 years ago, Zambia was producing roughly where we are, copper, 700,000–800,000 metric tons. Our colleagues in Congo DRC were producing only half of what we're producing, 300,000–400,000. Today they've come from behind. We are still stuck at 700,000 to 800,000 because, as you know, in the last 10 years, there's not a single mine that was opened. In Congo, big mines have opened. Now they are producing double of what we produce in terms of copper. Therefore, we need to take all the measures, non-tax and taxable measures, to ensure that Zambia is competitive so that we can also raise our production. So that target of ours, 3 million tons by the end of the 10 years' time, we attain that. That target will not be reached by business as usual. It is not possible because we are competing for capital with the rest of the world. But if we take measures that will make those with the cash to come and sink their money into the mines, we shall certainly get to that level or very close to that. And this is what will create the jobs. This is what will create the money. This is what will create the business opportunities. And we saw this beginning in 2003, because at that point, our own mining sector had declined. At that time, we were only producing 250,000 tons of copper. But once new money came into the mining sector, we saw production raising to 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800. You remember the business environment. Young people could go to Dubai to order stuff to sell because there was money coming into the country from the mining sector. Truckers were busy. People selling sand, blocks, water, mechanics, everyone was busy. But we have stagnated because no new mines have opened up. So now we want to encourage the opening up of new mines. Those mining sectors that are problems now, my colleague, the Minister of Mines, is working day and night. He is working day and night to resolve those issues so that those mines come back into production. I say this about mines because this is really the locomotive. The mining sector is the locomotive of the Zambian economic train. The sector goes down, the train comes to a halt. The locomotive accelerates, the economy accelerates. So, issues of taxation, but also perhaps even more importantly, issues of mining tax stability. In the last 10 years, almost every other 2 years or so, tax has changed. Today it is this tax, tomorrow that tax. You are confusing the investors, okay? You are confusing the investors. These are investments in hundreds of millions of US dollars. For somebody to come and put 500, 600, $1 billion here, the assurance, some confidence that the taxes will not be changed every other day or every other year. So these are, as we look at the tax issues for next year and the years beyond, we are going to work very hard to make sure that we attract investment, we create a stable environment, and this is what is going to create jobs in this country. Talk about the 3 million tons, for example. Transporting that 3 million tons to the export markets by itself. You can imagine the number of jobs that will be created in the trucking industry. The railway industry will suddenly come back to life. They can even borrow money to change all the infrastructure on their own without the government, because they will be assured, the bankers will be assured that if we put money in the Tazara or Zambia Railways, they will easily pay it back. And indeed, these sectors, Tazara and Zambia Railways, only collapsed when copper industry collapsed. Before then, in the 80s and behind that, the railways were working very well, Tazara and so these are the spin-offs that we expect to get. But the truth is also true for agriculture. You can imagine if sugar production rises from 400,000 metric tons now to even 1 million tons per annum, and with the space, with the water, we have the know-how, Today, everyone is complaining about the war and in Ukraine and Russia. There will be hunger. These are the opportunities for us, okay? These are the opportunities for us. Cooking oil from sunflower, from soybeans, groundnuts. There's a serious shortage now in the world of cooking oil, serious. But these are things that we can supply to the world. But it requires, of course, support to our farmers, but also it requires us to open up, create incentives for these large quantities of production to take place in our country. Then we do that, the transporters will be happy, the retail shops will be happy because there'll be money to come and buy from them. This is the way forward as far as this government is concerned. The same is true about tourism, infrastructure. For now, we are focusing on PPPs. I think as many of you are aware, the Lusaka-Ndola Road is in very bad shape. The previous attempt to borrow large sums of money to do it, this government will not do so. But again, hopefully in the next 4 to 5 weeks, we can conclude a deal with the private sector to do that road as a dual carriage route from Lusaka to the Copper Belt. Not using government money, using private sector money. The process is in a very advanced stage, and we feel that at this stage, in the next 4 to 5 weeks, we should be able to put a contractor and say, do this road, pay for it, and you collect fees or whatever arrangements work together with the government. We are also trying to do the same, Lusaka to Livingston. There are other roads like Sesheke to Kazungula. There are also other roads that private sector are pursuing, linking DRC Congo, not through Lubumbashi, but through the northwestern province, to Solwezi, Minunga thereabouts, to Kasempa, Kaoma. Those are initiatives that we are pursuing. I'm happy to report that the private sector has shown lots of interest. And of course, with all these measures to deal with the debt crisis, to encourage investment in the country, to ride on private sector money to do PPP, both in roads and power, we believe that pretty soon we should see the benefits to the Zambian economy in terms of more money and also more business opportunities and, of course, more jobs. So I believe that the future is very bright for the country under this administration. We have been working very hard in the background. This is our 8th month. But by the time we come to our 1 year, definitely you would have begin to see visible positive changes in our economy. Thank you so much indeed.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. That was a very mean round of applause. Can we encourage the Minister with a round of applause, please? Thank you. The Minister has briefed us on the engagements that his delegation had at the spring meetings. He has explained the issue of the creditor committees and how important that is in the debt restructuring process and other processes that are related to economic management. He has explained the economic stabilization measures that the government has put in place to ensure that, the macroeconomic fundamentals stabilize and the confidence is reinstalled in the economy. But a while ago, the minister was inviting the stakeholders to participate in the budget preparation process through submissions for tax and non-tax policy proposals. He has given us a perspective of some of the work that is in the background with the private sector, giving us an example of the Lusaka-Ndora dual carriageway, where some work is being done to ensure that there is an agreement and progress on that development program. At this point in time, we will take questions from the media and the other stakeholders who might be with us this morning in the room. As you indicate your wish to make a comment or ask, consider that there are others who might want to make comments or to ask. So please be as brief as possible, and preferably you may consider restricting yourself to one question so that as many of us as possible in the room participate. There is a microphone in the middle of the circle in the center there. You can walk there and ask your questions, but we would like to know who you are, so please kindly introduce yourself and the institution you are coming from. Do we have a starter in this segment? There's a madam here, so we'll start with you, madam, and the two gentlemen that are flowing behind you.
Good morning, Honorable Minister. Good morning, Bank of Zambia Governor, and good morning, members of the press and delegations. My name is Teresa Kalinga from CBC Television. My question is to Dr. Danny Kalaria, Bank of Zambia Governor. There has been a raging debate as to why, despite economic hardships and rise in food prices, goods and inflation is going down, could the reason be that the margin of propensity to spend by Zambians has reduced, or maybe there's a genuinely little money chasing goods and services? In this case, what other monetary and fiscal measures are you putting in place to address the ever-increasing cost of living? If not, maybe how do you explain the inflation dropping while the cost of living is increasing? Thank you.
Thank you. May I suggest that as you come to the mic, let us adopt the protocol that we shared earlier on. Just proceed to your introduction and the comment, please.
I'm Lazarus Sichula from KBN TV. Honourable Minister, I just want to get clarity. How much are we expected to get from the World Bank? And how much will we get if we manage to get the program from the IMF? And just to sum it up, do we have a plan B in case we didn't get the IMF program?
My name is Winston Mavor from Diamond TV. First, congratulations for the confidence that your administration seems to be getting from bilateral partners. My question is, we've not heard what some of the conditionalities are concerning the International Monetary Fund, and I believe that remains a subject that begs for clarification from your office. So since we only have a few weeks before we possibly conclude the IMF deal, what are some of the key conditionalities that Zambians should know?
Thank you. Do we have some more hands? I saw some hands that side. Yes, the gentleman there, the gentleman in there with some stripes on there. Another one, the last one, that side.
Oh, thank you very much.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Agik Katontoka from Chirundu Headlines. I'm the CEO for Chirundu Tax Advocates. My advice to the Minister in terms of tax, broadening the tax base, I think this broadening the tax aspect has to come from, we have to look on the other perspectives like the coming up industries, let's say the SMEs, and those are supposed to be funded by the CDF funds. So there's a shortage of money in secretion. So let's invest in this, these small industries which are coming up because there are over 1,000 applicants for this and the money hasn't yet reached this. Let's speed up the funds for CDF so that these industries, these small industries should start up. That's where we're going to broaden the aspects of tax. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we have the last two there before the minister and the delegation consider your comments and questions?
My name is Christine Full. I represent Reuters. Mine is just a clarification. You said the World Bank had committed to assist Zambia with some resources. How much have they committed to give us now, and what is tied to agreeing with the IMF?
Thank you so much. My name is Best Jerry from Money FM Radio. I wanted to find out if you are involving the youth, young people in this debt restructuring process, considering what the Minister of Finance mentioned on the Bretton Woods institutions. If we have a debt repayment plan for up to 30 years, I'm sure we'll be the ones to be dealing with the payments plan for 30 years. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, you may wish to respond from your seat.
Thank you very much, moderator, and all the people who asked questions. I'll pick two out of this, and then the colleagues that are here with me will assist to also pick the rest. Let me talk about the conditionality of the IMF. For now, because we have no formal agreement as yet, I'm not able to go through each one of them one by one. But what I can assure you is that do not be scared at all. I think those who tend to put fear and say when the IMF program comes, then you'll be thrown out of jobs, things will go up. Those are people maybe who are talking about the experiences from the past. But as of now, this is a very much transformed IMF, and is very much concerned, as we are all, about the poorest of the poor and ensuring that there's equity in the country. Just to give you examples, last year, the IMF gave us a gift of 1.3 billion US dollars. It is part of that money, and of course, yeah, it's part of that money that we are using to hire teachers, nurses, and so forth. And the IMF, this is an extraordinary situation, okay? Extraordinary situation. And going forward, we are all agreed together with them and all these other institutions that we should put support really on the poorest of the poor. So don't be scared to think that once we get to the IMF, things will become very expensive and so forth. We are all actually working to stabilize the prices. The other question that I want to, the issue of the involvement of the youth. There were a number of strands coming out of this, but I seem to be understanding to say, well, this money will be payable in 30 years, so it is us, the youth, who are going to bear that. But this really, number one, it is concessional, but number two also, remember the question that I raised, the counterfactual question which I raised, which was, supposing we do nothing about debt restructuring, where would the country be? And my answer that time was, you would have the exchange rate going wild, prices would be going wild, we'll be failing to pay salaries of new teachers and so forth. The debts that we are acquiring now, the concessional debts, are part of the money that we are using to focus on the social sector in the manner that I've explained. I also did explain that while we are cushioning the poorest of the poor with these resources that we are getting now, there's something else that we are doing to the economy to encourage it to be bigger. And hence my discussion earlier on about what we are doing to encourage investments in mining, agriculture, tourism, infrastructure, because surely, unless somebody comes to mess up this economy, within 5-10 years, the economy will be bigger, it will be able to sort out this concessional debt that we are getting now. So there is no contradiction. This is just a tactical move, to prevent the poorest of the poor from being subjected to very harsh conditions now, because you are a bankrupt country. So during this period when you are bankrupt, what should happen? We should stop paying teachers, we should stop paying nurses, we should stop building schools? No. We should continue doing so, using cheap long-term funding. But because we are doing something also to the economy to make it bigger, by the time it's time to pay this money, we have the capacity to do so. My final comment is CDF. Yes, I think I'm getting complaints that the process is slow. So we'll be engaging as an administration to see what we can do to speeden up the process, because as you recall, the first batch of the CDF was already released. How much was that? Yeah, each constituency as we sit now is sitting on 5 million kwacha. In previous times, a constituency would get 1.2 million for the whole year. Now, just for 1 quarter, they're getting 5 million kwacha. Unfortunately, most of this money is not moving. But also, there's something I need to say about this. I hear a number of many youths complaining that we've abandoned them, but I say to you, there's so much money lying in constituencies, okay? There's so much money lying in constituencies which you can tap into, some of which, of course, it will be given as grants, but the majority of it, we want to give it people, including youth, who in turn will do something to their communities, okay? It's not 5 million to give to you all for nothing. You must work for it. And the opportunities are there. Our countrymen and women in the rural areas, they are desperately short of classrooms. Some of these classrooms, if you saw them, you'll cry. Very poor, made out of mud and mud and poor. Go and build the classrooms in the rural areas. The money is there. Women have to walk 30, 40 kilometers to get to the nearest clinic. Go and build the clinics in the rural areas. Children are sitting on the dust on the ground. Go and make desks for the rural children. You'll be paid for it. But if you come to the office, Minister of Finance, and say, oh, me, I'm a youth, I want to supply guns to the police, or I want to supply helicopters to whoever. There's no money like that in the budget, okay? There's no money like that in the budget. So the olden days of coming and saying, me, I want to supply ambulances or fire tenders, so give me money. There is no money like that in the budget. The money that is there is for you to go and do the work that the rural people appreciate. Even here in urban areas like Lusaka, there are classrooms which are dilapidated. There are classrooms or there are schools where the water system is congested, clogged. There are classrooms that require painting. The CDF money is there for you to go and do the works to assist the communities, not to come and supply fire tenders and ambulances. So, if you are looking for money, the money is there, but for the work that society appreciates. So in a sense, this complaint is like somebody looking for fish. Then you go in the forest to look for the fish. Of course, you'll not find it. If you're looking for fish, go to the rivers. So the money to enable the youth and any other person who wants to do serious community work is there. Don't say there's no money. Money is there. The problem is that you don't want to go and do the work that your countrymen and women want to be done. Painting schools, painting clinics, providing water in schools, clinics. The money that is there is for that kind of job. And don't come to me or the Minister of Education to say, me, I want to do this and this. Go to the constituency. That's the whole idea. Go to the constituency. Go and talk to the councillors. What are you in need of? They will tell you what the requirement is. The money is there to deal with those issues. Thank you. Governor and then Secretary to the Treasury.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The question that was posed to me directly was from Teresa Kalenga about inflation. Let me preface this by saying that some of the details I will not be able to share with you here, but as you know, next week, Wednesday, we do have a date with you when we make our announcement for monetary policy decision. So some of the explanations as to what is going on in the economy, you'll be able to gauge from that presentation. But just for today, this is a matter I think we have seen some debate as to what is going on. I think first of all, I think it hinges on what really is inflation. The way we measure inflation, some stats collects information on a regular basis every month. Now, what they're doing is there is a basket of goods or commodities that they sampled from the household surveys that were done some time back. And based on that, they compile what is called the Consumer Price Index, meaning they group all these goods and commodities together with their pricing. So when they go for each month, they collect that information, then there is a base that we compare to. So our inflation is measured from year to year, as is the case. So the 11.5% that you are talking about is measuring the change in the prices in the month of April, for example, versus what was the obtaining situation in the month of April the previous year. Now, we have explained last year that there was this jump in inflation. You saw the exchange rate, as the Honourable Minister explained, reaching as far as 22 kwacha to the dollar. All that had impact on that, and then other commodity prices also rose. But as we are moving away from when the prices jumped, we have been describing that that is a base effect that we are seeing. So in short, I think what is going on is that prices are going up, obviously, that you have greater than zero inflation means prices are going up. The issue is that they are going up at a slower rate. That's the drop in inflation intelligence. So inflation is the rate of change in the prices. It is not saying that prices are not moving up or not. So I think it's important to remember that. So when you hear 11.5%, it means prices did actually go up by that. But if you look what was the situation in the previous month when you had 13.1, it means that during that period, the rise was much higher. So I hope that is explained. We talked with your colleagues. I think we'll do some frequently asked questions and provide answers on our website for such concepts, so that I think there is better understanding by all of us, so that we are talking about the things. So don't go and say, okay, the price of water has gone up, so but the inflation has gone down. Or you go and say the price of fuel has gone up, but they are saying inflation. That no, we are looking at the aggregate price. Some have gone up, others may not have gone. So on the average, the rate of change is what has slowed down. So that's what is going on. But as I indicated at the beginning, we invite you to come to the meeting on Wednesday, where we'll share more information about what we see is going on in the economy. I hope that helps. Thank you.
Maybe let me just add a few perspectives there. The governor has explained it very well, but sometimes I hear people saying, why aren't the prices coming down? Isn't it? Yes. Remember, the policy objective is to stabilize prices. Okay, stabilize prices, not necessarily to bring down all prices. Of course, some will come down, but if the expectation is that today there's government policy to drive down the price of maize, to drive down the price of eggs, to drive down the price of tomatoes, to drive down the price of bread, that now causes a problem. It causes a problem because you are basically talking about something called what? Recession. What's the word for that? Deflation. So remember, if you are happy that the price of chicken goes down, there's a farmer out there who produced the chicken. Would they be happy that the price of chicken goes down? Take into account all their costs. Most probably not, because now they'll be losing money. Somebody out there selling milk, somebody out there selling a commodity. So the policy objective is not to drive prices down, because it causes a problem of bankruptcy. That farmer selling chickens, you are ending up bankrupting them. the policy objective, the most important one, is to stabilize prices. And as you can see, every month, the rate of change of prices, which the governor was talking about, the inflation rate, every month is going down, 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 down. That is the stabilization that we are looking for, not necessarily to drive prices down because it will hurt somebody else in the economy. ST.
Thank you very much. Probably, Minister, let me just add on to the comments on the conditionalities that are there in the staff level agreement. In January, the Minister and the IMF mission chief did address the press, and we did discuss this issue. And probably we see that probably is the understanding and obviously the perception that comes from the IMF of yesteryear and the IMF of today. When the government came into power, they talked about the economic reform agenda. That was anchored on 4 areas: economic transformation, human capital development, good governance, and environmental sustainability. And based on that, the Minister of Finance went and presented a budget on 28th October 2021, which budget we are implementing now. And the minister in the budget went into details of some of the reforms that government were going to undertake in those broad areas. And he talked about domestic resource mobilization, which he also reiterated today. And he talked about expenditure rationalization. And he talked about some of the reforms, the subsidy reforms that would be undertaken. And he talked about the social sector spending, which is anchored under the human resource. And on the basis of this, the IMF, the World Bank, and other institutions came and said, we support this program. And the IMF gave us a $1.3 billion. That $1.3 billion that the minister talked about, that the IMF gave us, they gave a condition. And the condition was that that money was going to be spent in the social sector. That we're going to use that money to do the social protection. That we're going to use that money to pay the retirees. So those are the conditions that they gave. And we talked about how we are going to enhance our resources and how we are going to rationalize our expenditure. And the IMF came in and said, if you are saying you are going to rationalize your expenditure, and you are going to enhance your domestic resource mobilization, given the macroeconomic framework, that then shows the Zambia's positive story or positive trajectory trend in terms of economic growth, we can go into a staff level agreement and approve the program, where as you are looking for additional resources, the IMF will give you $1.4 billion. Once that program is approved. So it is the Zambian macroeconomic framework that we have presented to the IMF. This framework is encumbered by the debt overhang. And we came up with the debt sustainability analysis that says in order for us to have this framework, we think that our debt numbers or of our debt treatment should be reprofiled, and we are looking at the assumption of the reprofiling of those debt numbers so that we can have that macroeconomic framework. 3 things that we committed in there that would come out. 1, the minister committed that we are going to undertake expenditure in the social sector, recruitment of 30,000 teachers and the recruitment of 11,000 health workers. If you wish, if we don't do that and we use that money for something else, the IMF are going to tell us, sorry, the macroeconomic framework you told us was that you are going to recruit teachers so that you invest in your human capital, and therefore we will not give you a program. If we did that. We also committed that we are going to remove the subsidies on fuel, and that over the long term we are going to look at the cost of service study on electricity, and that we are going to migrate to that cost of service study. Of course, if today we are going to go to the IMF, or we are going to abandon that route and say, let's go back to subsidy, let's forget about the cost of service study, probably the IMF will come and say, sorry, the macros do not benefit, and because the macros don't benefit, we are going to put this. So those are the issues that the minister and the IMF mission chief talked about in January after we went on to that program. There is no secret beyond those issues that the minister announced in the budget. The question probably you want to ask is, why are we not sharing the staff level agreement? The issue is that the staff level agreement was an agreement between the government of Zambia and the IMF staff, mission staff. And we need to take that to the board. But as we are taking to the board, we agreed with the IMF that since the board is coming at a later stage, there could be some other issues that may come on board that we need to include. For instance, at that time, we didn't know about the Ukraine-Russia war. That has shown us that we have got now higher prices on fuel, we have got higher prices on commodities. And the idea was that at the time that the board is ready to look at our program, we could then adjust some of those parameters to reflect what is on the ground and take that document to the board. Now, if we had shared that document, if we had published that document, it means we could have been taking the old document to the board. That then probably would have an impact beyond what is at the current stage. I just wanted to make you understand that the conditionalities that you want are the conditionalities that we gave ourselves in the budget. The minister announced those conditions. And the only reason we have not shared the program, the staff level agreement, is because we are looking at updating the macros as it is going to the board. Because if we share it, it means it is that program that we need to take. So this is an agreement that we said at the time that we go to the board, we updated to reflect the macros that are on the ground. And we have already seen some of the macros, some of their price assumption shifting, and we are updating that. And once the board approves that document will be a public document. How much is the World Bank committing? Now, under the World Bank, there is what is called the IDA, International Development Assistance. This is concessional, highly concessional financing that the World Bank gives to the low-income countries. And Zambia is one of the low-income countries and therefore benefits from the IDA loans. The IDA loans have got interest rates of about 0.75%, under 1%. They have got a grace period of about 10 years. And they have got a repayment period of up to 30 years. This is given to the low-income countries. And under the IDA 19, which is coming to an end on 30th June 2022, we now have mobilized and will be able to get the resources of about $564 million. This was the allocation under IDA 19. It's about 600, 100 of each was already committed, and the 500 was not committed because of the challenges we had on the debt situation. Now that there is light at the end of the tunnel, the World Bank has come back and said, if everything is in accordance, we'll be able to give you. How much of this is linked to the IMF program? It is what is called the development policy operation, or basically budget support. For them to be able to give us the budget support, to be able to give us the money to use it the way we want, it means there must be a program that shows that we are indeed undertaking the macroeconomics that we agreed in the budget, and that the independent referee is the IMF. And this is why this amount is tied to the IMF program. This amount that is tied to the IMF program under the IDA 19, which is closing in June 2022, is about $275 million. When we get the program, I'm not saying if, because we know we are going to get the program. When we get the program, the World Bank will come on the table with $275 million as budget support in order to help us achieve the recruitment of the teachers we are talking about, the payment of the salaries to the health workers we are talking about, and undertaking the overall budget programs that we have put in the budget. There are also programs that are not linked to the IMF programs, that the World Bank, we are working with the World Bank. One of it is what we are calling the growth pause. And we are looking at projects in the agricultural sector and in the tourism sector. And these projects, we are using a new financing modality called the Program for Results. Again, they are not describing, it is the same works that we are doing in the tourism sector and in the agricultural sector. And we agree on the indicators that should be achieved. And should we achieve those indicators, they give us that money and it becomes part of the budget money. So of the 564, 275 is going towards the budget support. About 189 is going towards the growth pause, and about 100 million is a project we are planning for the decentralization to enhance what the minister is talking about, to help build the capacity in the local authorities, to help make sure that as the resources are flowing, they are reaching the intended targets. But this is only IDA 19. We are now going, they are finished with the IDA 20 replenishment. And you remember that Dr. Kariaria was the co-chair on the IDA 20 replenishment before he was appointed as governor. We expect under IDA 20 replenishment to get additional financing, to get financing under IDA 20. That starts from July 2022 and it goes for 3 years. We are expecting the minimum we can get is again this 654 million, which was the level of IDA 19. But probably we can get even more than that. Again, we are hoping that we are on track with our macroeconomics so that part of that money can go towards the budget support, so that we can use it as we are servicing the debt. We can employ more teachers, we can employ more nurses, but we can also undertake social protection program. The idea is that as we are undertaking these reforms, the bottom 40% of the Zambian people that are poor, we should have the social safety nets to protect them. And this is why we are doing an enhancement on social protection programs. In terms of the money that is coming from the IMF, I think this was already announced. It is $1.4 billion if we go on the program and the program is approved. So I thought those were the main issues that were raised, but we have tried to respond to that. Like Dr. Kariaria has put, probably we will also be proposing and putting on the website the most frequently asked questions, so that the press and the citizens can follow through and be able to look at some of this information, particularly when you talk about the conditionalities, because I think the minister addressed it during the budget speech. We had a meeting with the IMF mission chief in here maybe she joined us online when the minister talked about the program and what was in the program, and this is the thing that is coming today. So probably the communication, and we'll try to improve on that, and we'll try to simplify it so that we have got often asked questions that are put on our website and people can look at that. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and your team for those very, very elaborate responses. Coming from the communication field, I will tell you, Honorable Minister, and assure you that we have so many beautiful stories to write today and over the weekend coming into next week. We will therefore be bringing the program to a close in a short while, but perhaps you can allow my colleagues from the media to just give us the last round of questions before you proceed to your next assignment, which is on the Copperbelt province this evening. Talking about online publications and our online resources, you can check. We've just posted the economic report for 2021. You can go to www.mof.gov.zm. You'll find the economic report there and all other information resources. Do we have takers for this very last round of questions? There's a gentleman here, the hand there, and the two of you, and we'll bring the event to a close. Thank you. So can you just come and line up in advance so that we don't waste time? So as agreed, introduce yourself and go straight to the issue, please.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Ernest Chanda from the Must newspaper. Honorable Minister, when you were giving us an update on the people that you met at the spring meeting, you also talked about the Chinese, who seem to be our biggest creditors. May I find out how their response was? Because you didn't tell us. Wow, you told us about the positive response from the World Bank and the IMF. How was the response of the Chinese executives that you met?
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. My name is Geoffrey Sizala from Action Aid Zambia. Mine, I just want to find out any strategies currently the government is employing to ensure that we lower the cost of production vis-a-vis the ever-increasing fuel price. Thank you very much.
Lazarus Sichua. I just wanted to say that I didn't hear my question answered on the Plan B that government had in case we didn't have IMF bailout.
Thank you very much. My name is Jelo Mwanajingwala. Sorry, my voice is hoarse. I'm an artist representing the Comedians Association of Zambia. And mine is just coming in light. It's clear that there is a gap in information between what we, the technocrats, know and what the layman knows out there. So speaking as an artist, is there any deliberate interventions in which the government hopes to work with people that are in touch with the roots in trying to see how we can repackage this information and get to the grassroots? That's my contribution. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, we've come to a close of our Q&A session. You have the other assignments to attend to, therefore you may wish to take the questions here. If there are any questions that you wish to assign to your delegation, you may do so, and then close the event with your responses and closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First question, response of the Chinese. In a sense, maybe we didn't come out clear on it because we thought it was already in the public media. I thought it was all over in the press that the Chinese made a categorical statement in the meeting at the IMF that they are going to participate in the common framework. We met with the one who made the statement. Well, maybe that's not important, but subsequently to that, we met with the executive director of the People's Republic of China to the IMF. He repeated what the governor had said in the meeting, but we also had a very good exchange because we all realized that this issue of the debt crisis is something that is going to be over, and the most important thing is what kind of further economic cooperation will take place between Zambia and all our creditors. We are happy ourselves that this matter is going to be resolved, not just from the point of view of assisting us to get to sustainable level, but we believe that it's going to open further avenues for economic cooperation between Zambia and all other nations on earth. Fuel prices, let me start by saying that there's a misconception that fuel prices were cheaper before, specifically cheaper before this government came into office. I think we've said it over and over again, that the prices, the fuel that we're buying at the fuel stations was subsidized by the government. Okay, so government used to import fuel indirectly through people, and then we would pay at the filling station, but the price we're paying is not the real price. The price was much higher than that. Okay? Now, those who were doing this thing in the past, they were just busy accumulating bills. They collected expensive fuel, they sold it to us cheaply, but then they were failing to pay the fuel suppliers. So at the time when we got in, there was an amount of, I think, more than $500 million US. What was the exact amount? How much did we owe? So almost $600 million of unpaid bill. Fuel that government collected from fuel suppliers but did not pay them because they could not find the money. Now, it could not go on like that because at some point, the availability of fuel itself was going to be not there. You don't pay people, next time they don't supply you. So the next thing that was going to happen was shortages of fuel everywhere. So we have to pay those people. Now, the price that we are paying now is more or less the market price. There's no subsidy other than for the fact that we have no tax on the fuel, but from the perspective of the suppliers, there should be no subsidy that we owe them. Okay? Now, so this is the true cost of the fuel. But of course, it is also true that in the light of the war that is taking place in Ukraine, the world price of petroleum products is at extremely high levels, very high levels. The price of a barrel of oil, I think, had gone as high as $140 per barrel. Now it has come down somewhat. But the point is that Zambia does not produce fuel. We must import it. And where we import it from, the price is high. And we are not subsidizing because the money that we use to subsidize for this is not there. We are focusing resources, as we told you earlier on social sectors. But going forward, there are certain things that government is doing. There are certain things that government is doing so that even with the high prices, the cost of bringing the fuel from wherever into Zambia, we bring that down. Yes, from the source it is expensive, but there was an element, an extra element of expense arising from the point where the fuel is picked from to deliver it in Zambia. So one of the reforms that is there, which is my colleague, the Minister of Energy, is working very hard on, is to convert that pipeline, the Tazama pipeline, from being a pipeline transporting crude to being a pipeline to carry finished products. When that is done, hopefully not in the very distant future, after the middle of the year, when that is done, at least the component of transporting fuel, which is not very cheap, the component of transporting the fuel from Dar es Salaam to Ndola, the cost of that will come down. The cost of that will come down. And the formula that is there, if the cost of petroleum goes down, you get the benefit. If the cost of petroleum goes up, unfortunately also, you have to pay. So let's pray, therefore, that the war in Ukraine will end soon, that the price of fuel from where it is imported from will come down. When that happens, of course, the price of fuel will come down. There is no plan B about this, okay? You must understand that very well. There is no plan B because what we are doing is the only sensible thing to get this economy out of problem. This is a plan that Zambia has used before to get out of a debt crisis. This is a plan that other countries are using to get out of the plan. Please do remember that from 2016 to 2021, there was an attempt to go it alone. That plan did not deliver anything. That's why we are still talking about the debt crisis today. Okay, so the so-called plan of doing it yourself, once you've got yourself into the debt mud, that failed to work from 2016 until 2021. You can see with the process that we've already engaged in, the benefits are already visible even before we've concluded in the process. So there is no plan B because this plan A is going to work. On the dissemination, I have colleagues here. I don't know whether the ST or anybody else or Kandeta himself can address this.
The submission by Bwana Manachingwala is noted. We'll work on a plan. Thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of this event. A few days back, the President had a briefing. At that briefing, he made the assurance that various sectors of government will continue to engage the citizenry in the areas of specialization. The same applies with the Honorable Minister and his team here. As and when topical issues arise, we will engage you. However, we have a plan to have quarterly briefings so that we update you on what is happening in the economy. Earlier on, the governor did indicate that there will be a briefing at the Bank of Zambia next week. So there are specific questions to do with the monetary policy that will be addressed at that briefing. And At this point in time, I would like to thank you all for coming and extend an invitation to you for refreshments after we close the event. Shall we be upstanding? And I'll ask for a closing prayer from Mwana Chingwara, and then we have the closing anthem and disperse. Mwana Chingwara, can you give us a prayer? Upempela, kulibet ni pempela hapa.
Our eyes are closed and we're praying. Dear God, we thank you for making this gathering possible, and we thank you for the knowledge that has been imparted thereof. We pray that such gatherings continue and that the flow of knowledge also goes forward. We pray for our leaders and the people that are key in what we are deliberating on. Be with us today and be with us in the days to come. Through your Son, Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen. Is our cry. Dignity and peace need Zambia's sky. Like a noble eagle in its flight. Zambia, praise to thee, O one strong and free. Praise be to God. Bless our great nation, Zambia. Free men we stand under the flag of our land, Zambia. Praise to thee, O one strong and free.
Thank you very much.